Hello, everyone. Dr. Mad here. Let's get mad about A Christmas Carol. So, we are almost finished this stave and the book. This is where we left off in the last video. So, let's just carry on. There's not much left now. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late. That was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. A quarter past. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door. His comforter, too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hello," growled Scrooge, in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I'm very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year," pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." Sorry. So I got carried away there. So Scrooge arrives early at the office next morning. He's going to play a trick on Bob Cratchit, and he wants to catch Bob Cratchit coming in late. And he does catch him coming late because 9 o'clock comes, no Bob. And anyway, Bob is 18 and a half minutes late. And the tank, remember, is just that the room is so small. Cratchit's room is so small that it's like a tank. And this here is talking about Cratchit now. So he takes his hat off and his scarf off as soon as he comes in, or just before even, sits down in a jiffy, means like very quickly, in a moment. And this means writing away furiously. And then this is just a metaphor to say that to try and make up for the lost time. And Scrooge comes in, and growl means like a rough voice in his usual voice. And feign means to imitate. So he's pretending to be the way he used to be before. And he said, "What do you mean by coming in so late?" And Bob says, "Yes, I'm sorry I'm late." And Scrooge says, "Yes, you are late. Come this way." And basically, Cratchit is thinking he's going to be sacked for coming late. And he says, "Sorry, it's only once a year. I was drinking. I was having a party last night because it was Christmas. And that's why I overslept and I'm late." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer. And therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again, "and therefore I am about to raise your salary." Sorry, I should have spoken in my normal voice there. I'm just getting carried away because we're almost at the end of the book and I'm excited about Scrooge's transformation. So he's played his joke and now he talks in his new jolly voice. Sorry, let me read the page and then I'll explain. Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him, and calling to the people in the court for help and a straight waistcoat. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge, with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy another coal scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." Okay, and so up to here, he's kind of joking, but then suddenly he changes and jumps up and kind of digs Bob in the inside, so that he almost staggers back into the his small room. And now he talks in his new voice that he's going to raise his salary. Bob trembles, and he's thinking Scrooge has gone completely mad. So he gets nearer to the ruler. He's going to take the ruler and kind of hit Scrooge with it. and call for help, and obviously straight waistcoat or straight jacket, the thing that you put insane people in. But but then Scrooge says Merry Christmas with earnestness, so seriously, and now Bob starts to believe that he's genuine and says Merry Christmas again, and he's apologizing that he hasn't said that to him for many years, and he says I'm going to raise your salary, and endeavor means to try to assist to help you, your struggling family, and we're going to talk about your affairs, meaning your life, your job, your problems. And smoking bishop is a drink, a hot drink, a type of mulled wine. And he says, make up the fires, meaning have a bigger fire because it's cold. Buy a scuttle means metal container where you put your coal before you write another word or before you put another dot on top of an I. That's just a metaphor there. Okay, so Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset, and knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards, and it was always said of him, that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that be truly said of us and all of us, and so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, every one. Okay, so just the last bit left now. So Scrooge kept his word. He did everything he said he was going to do. So raising the salary and everything. And Tiny Tim did not die because Scrooge paid for his hospital or medical bills. He's like a second father to him. And he became a good friend to everybody, a good employer, a good man, as anybody that anybody had ever known in any city or town or borough. That's just an area of a town in the good old world. And some people laughed to see the change in him, but he let them laugh and he didn't care he didn't give them any attention. He didn't care about what they were thinking because he was wise enough to know that no matter what happens, there are some people who will laugh at anything, especially at the beginning. I mean, don't try to interpret this too exactly. We all know that no matter what you do, there are some people who will laugh or who won't be happy or who won't understand you, and it's not worth worrying about them because he says that they're blind anyway. So here he's talking metaphorically. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're doing. They're ignorant. And he thought that let them wrinkle up their eyes in grins. So in other words, let them metaphorically make themselves blind by laughing, as have the malady. The malady means a disease. So he's talking about disease. So he's saying he'd rather that they were metaphorically blind by laughing rather than actually blind. So again, you don't need to worry too much about this. It's just Dickens talking metaphorically and poetically, and he's happy in his heart. He's so much so that it's as though his heart is laughing. So personification, and he's happy with himself because he knows he's doing the right thing. And this word just means communication. Okay, so he doesn't talk with the spirits anymore. The spirits don't come, and this is just a joke from Dickens that spirits obviously also means alcohol. That he stops drinking. I mean, to be fair, there's no evidence to suggest that Scrooge is much of a drinker, but in any case, he kind of stops drinking anyway. In those days, people did drink and like cheap drink, and they would make themselves ill. So he's probably thinking, I'll just stop drinking altogether. Anyway, don't need to worry too much about that. And this means that he celebrated Christmas. He knew how to celebrate it as much as any person alive had the knowledge of how to celebrate Christmas. So this ending here, Dickens just being very poetic and metaphorical in his ending. And yeah, so Dickens is saying, may that be said of all of us. And as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone. Okay, so that's the end of the book. Let's go through the summary. So Scrooge finds himself back in his room at the beginning of Stave 5. He's completely transformed into a happy, jolly person. So remember, the third spirit has kind of faded down into the bedpost. He learns that it's still Christmas Day, so he has a second chance to celebrate it. First thing he does, he sends a huge turkey to the Cratchit's house, so they don't have to eat goose instead. He walks around the streets and really enjoys it, watching the people and greeting them. So yeah, it's sometimes the simple things in life are the best, aren't they? He bumps into one of the men who had come collecting for charity in chapter 1 and says that he wants him to come and collect a large sum from him to make up for all the years that he had not given to charity. He goes to church and then walks around some more. Then he goes to his nephew's house in time for a Christmas dinner. So remember, this is the nephew who had invited him at the beginning of the book. He had said no. So this is Fred, his sister Fan's son. They are initially surprised, but very happy to see him, and he feels at home in minutes. He joins in with the party games and the party atmosphere. The next morning, he plays a trick on Cratchit by pretending to be angry that Cratchit is a bit late. He's about 18 minutes late, but then tells him that he's going to raise his salary and help him and Tiny Tim, who survives because of this. So remember, Tiny Tim is disabled and he needs medical help, but they don't have the money to pay for that. And there was no national health service in those days. Scrooge resolves to live like this forever after. Okay, so here are some questions just to test your basic knowledge of the chapter. It's really important that you know the plot so that you can then make points from that, the analytical points you need to make to get really good marks. So in your exam, you don't want to be wasting time trying to think of what happened. You want to spend all your time analyzing and making deep and insightful points. So I won't read through the questions. If you can pause the video here and answer these questions, please. And these are really just from the summary, so you may have to either go back and listen to the whole video again or just read through the summary again. So I'm going to move to the answer slide now in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, 1, and moving now. So there are the answers. So these are simple questions, really. And then just a few key quotations and just one question, really. How do B and C show that Scrooge had genuinely changed? And also, this is just a repetition of what he said in at the end of the last chapter. So have a go at answering this question before you look at the answer. I'm going to move to the answer slide now in 3 seconds. Please pause the video and have a go at it first. So 3, 2, 1, and moving now. So the fact that he remains anonymous and includes back payments, which the charity man was not expecting, shows that Scrooge has genuinely changed. So that it's inside himself, in his heart, that he has changed. He's not changing for the sake of other people or to show off. Okay, that's the important point here. Okay, so that's the end of the Stave 5 summary and questions and so on. And in fact, the end of the book. But we do have time in this video to now revise the whole book again. So Here's a summary of Stave 1. So it's the same as the one you've seen in the previous video. I'm not going to go through these summaries in the same way as in the previous videos because that would be just repeating. But what I will do is add some additional information and advice on how to learn not only Christmas Carol, but generally. So when you read something for pleasure, okay, you could just read it once and just read it for enjoyment and it doesn't matter if you don't understand everything or remember everything. But when you're reading something to study to pass an exam, especially something like GCSE, which is quite a high level exam, then it's important to go through everything at least 2 or 3 times. Okay, there are no shortcuts. Sometimes students say, "Oh, I don't have a good memory, or I'm not good at English or maths or whatever the subject might be." And the truth is that quite often it's just that they don't go through it enough times. Okay, well, quite often they don't even go through it once, let alone twice or 3 times. I mean, it is true that obviously people are different. Some people can go through something once or twice and learn it inside out straight away. Other people have to go through it 2, 3, 4 times. But that doesn't matter. The point is, as long as you learn it in the end, that's the main thing. There are no shortcuts. Now, this summary of day one you can read through yourselves. I would just, it's all important, but maybe I would just point out this bullet point here. So, in terms of context, so make sure you've gone through the context video a few times as well, and the 1834 Poor Law and Thomas Malthus. Oh, I think there's a spelling mistake there. That should be Thomas Malthus. So I've corrected that. It should be Thomas Malthus. So the great thing about context is that on the one hand, it's worth 15%, which is a lot. It's 1.5 grades. But at the same time, doesn't mean that your 15% of your essay has to be about it. Just a little bit of context takes you a long, long way. And yes, if you when you go back through the Stave 1 videos, please make sure that you notice the spelling mistake there. Okay, so that's the summary of Stave 1. Here are the questions. Please pause the video here and try to answer these questions again. I know you'll have done them in the Stave 1 videos, but like I just said, it's all about repetition. The brain learns by repetition. You might think, wouldn't it be great if I could just do something once and remember it? Well, not really, because it would mean that the brain would remember everything it ever sees. Now, some people say there is a theory that actually the brain does do that, but leaving that aside, you don't really want to remember in detail everything because your brain would soon get overloaded. You wouldn't be able to function. So it's actually a good thing that you have to go through something 2 or 3 times. When the brain sees something once, it kind of notices it, but not really. It sees it twice and thinks, maybe I need to remember this. Maybe it's important. Maybe I'm going to come uh, come up against it again. When it sees it a third time, it thinks, right, I really need to remember this. Okay. So repetition is not a sign that you're not good at learning or that your memory is not good. It's just the brain, it's just the way the brain works. Okay, so pause the video here and answer these questions first before looking at the answers. So I'm going to move to the answer slide in 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1. So there are the answers. So pause the video here to check your answers. And now I'm going to move to the next slide in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, 1. And here are some key quotations. So these are the same slides as before. And so remember this quotation is really important, okay? So this idea that he's going to turn into a pearl later on in life, which we've now seen. And this is a quotation that Dickens has given to the English language. So Dickens is perhaps second only to Shakespeare in giving the English language lots of words and phrases that we use all the time. Okay, so answer these questions, and I'm going to move to the answer slide in 3 seconds. So three, two, one. There are your answers. Please make sure that you can answer them without thinking. So pause the video here, check your answers, and now I'm going to move to the next slide. Okay, so sorry, we were on this slide, and now moving to the summary of Stave 2, and I won't go through it all, but just some key points. So his sister's name is Fan, so it's good to remember, important to remember all the characters' names so that you, in your exam, you can just focus on the analysis. You're not sitting there wasting time thinking about plot and character names, which you can learn beforehand. Okay, everything you can learn beforehand, you need to learn so that in the exam, where you have very little time, you can focus on the writing the essay and making your analytical points. And his old boss, Fezziwig, his fiance's name is Belle. Okay, so that's summary 2. So you can pause the video here if you need to just to learn it. And then here are the questions. So pause the video here and check your answers. Sorry, answer these questions. Make sure you can do them without thinking. So I'm going to move to the answer slide in 3 seconds. Three, two, one, and moving now. There you go. So the key points here are the fact that Fezziwig is the complete opposite of Scrooge. So remember, one of the main reasons why Dickens wrote this novel was to highlight the working conditions and to encourage employers that they should treat their employees nicely. And obviously, this was back in those days, there weren't really any laws to protect workers. Okay, it was all down to the employer. So that's an important contextual point that you can write in your essays. And then the other point to make is that Bell breaks their engagement because when he becomes obsessed with money. So another contextual point you can make here, what do you think? What point could you make here in relation to the times? So it might be that people think that back in the day that people only got married for money. Um, so you might think that Belle would be perfectly happy to take his money, but actually she's not. She wants love. Okay, so you can pause the video here to check your answers, and I'll move to the next slide in 3 seconds. So three, two, one. Okay, so here are the key quotations. So here's some emotive words, solitary and neglected. And this is where we start to see Scrooge changing. And another idol, so golden idol. Do you remember this word here? What does it mean? To do with money. And actually, I've kind of given you the answers there, but that's okay. You can test yourself whether you were listening to me or not. So answer these questions, please. Pause the video. I'm going to move to the answer slide in three, two, one, and moving now. Oh, there we go. In the original video, I'd missed this speech mark here. So I've corrected that. There you go. So pause the video here to check your answers. And moving to the next slide in three, two, one. So here's the summary of Stave 3. And just the key points here would be the fact that Bob Cratchit and his family are very happy despite being poor. Tiny Tim is disabled. They can't help him. They don't have the money to pay for medicine and the doctor and so on. And then there's different people all living very hard lives, but still managing to celebrate Christmas. And then he goes to his nephew's house, and they make the point that Scrooge only hurts himself really by staying alone. Okay, and then here's this one. So remember, this is the longest stave. And precept is a good word to learn. So these are general rules for good living. And then this is extremely important in the whole book. These two children, symbolic of ignorance and want. So lack of education and poverty. Okay, so here are these questions. Please answer these questions. Pause the video here. And this question 8 is critical. Okay, so moving on to the answer slide in 3. So stop the video, please. Pause the video and answer these questions. So 3, 2, 1, and moving to the answer slide now. There we go. So yeah, 7 and 8 are the most important ones, especially 8. Okay, pause the video, please. Check your answers. And now moving on to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. So here are the key quotations. So here, this is a difficult metaphor. I'll give you the answer. So it's about people at the top, rich people having as much as they want to eat, more than enough money, and then telling people below them how to live. Okay, so pause the video here and answer this question, please. And moving to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. There you go. So symbolism is when you use a physical object to represent an abstract idea. Abstract means non-physical. So abstract is usually ideas or emotions. Okay, pause the video and check your answers. And moving in 3, 2, 1. And the main point here is that Scrooge learns that nobody is upset about him dying. In fact, they steal from him. And he really, really now starts to change. So you can pause the video and learn this summary. And moving on in 3, 2, 1. So answer these questions, please. Okay, pause the video and answer these questions. And then moving on to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. Okay, and then here are the key quotations. And this is extremely important quotation. Lots of techniques used here. Repetition, double alliteration, exclamation, and most of all, apostrophe, which is not the little punctuation mark, but when you talk to an object or something that's not there, so in this case, death, or you talk to an abstract idea. So I've given you the answer, one of the answers there, but that's okay. You can test whether you were listening. Okay, moving to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. There you go. So please pause the video here. And I'm going to move to the next slide in 3, 2, 1. So this is back to Stave 5, which obviously this is the video for Stave 5 anyway. So this is just repeating Stave 5. So I won't go through this really. The main point is that the transformation is complete and it's genuine because he doesn't try to, he keeps everything anonymous and he does things that way beyond even what people might expect from him. So answer these questions, please. Pause the video again. So I know it's again, you're doing it again, but that's the whole point, as I've explained. So moving on to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. Pause the video here. Check your answers. If you can't answer all of these questions without thinking, you need to revise all the videos again. And then there's the answers. And then finally, last few quotations. And moving on to the answer slide in 3, 2, 1. There you go. Pause the video there. And moving on to the last slide. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the course. Please tell all your friends. Please subscribe. And remember, if you couldn't answer the questions without thinking, you need to go back and go through the whole course again. Okay, so good luck with that and see you on one of the other courses or in this same course again.